Hey everybody, welcome to the first edition of a Classic Physique Top 10 Rankings. I'm your host, Mandus alongside co-host Nate Spear. Nate, how you feeling today, man?
Great, man. It's definitely season's getting warmed up now, and especially a Classic, there's so much that's going to happen throughout the year. You can already see it. A lot of new guys, a lot of vets leading the way, a lot of guys that got to qualify. You know what I mean? It should be a pretty good season.
I think this is a very, very much highly anticipated year. It's been a couple years. Classic's been around now. We seem to have gotten a pretty good idea of what the athletes want to look like, what the judges are looking for, what the criteria is. They messed with the weight classes a little bit. They seem to about settled in.
It sort of reminds me actually of men's physique, how it started, and now you see it unfolding into something much greater, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there was room. There was room to improve and grow. If we looked at the beginning, legs were not that prominent. There were some guys with pretty shape and some guys that were bigger, and from show to show it would change. We're really starting to kind of see there's still all kinds of shapes and sizes out there.
Well, at the end of the day, it's still bodybuilding, right? I mean, they call it classic physique, but we're going to keep progressing, right?
You got it. And what happens when you tell any athlete, get bigger, get stronger, get faster?
Right?
It's by nature. It's nature. So, I don't think people really know what to expect from this show or what this thing is going to be about. So we're going to let you guys know this is going to be a top 10 rankings. Who we have ranked where and why, and we'll have a special guest on every episode. We've got a good one on for you guys. This first episode, be sure you stay tuned to watch. You're not gonna want to miss this. I promise you. And then Nate also wants to talk about who's somebody not in that top 10. Nate, tell us a little bit about your other idea of what we're gonna add to the mix here.
Yeah, so I mean, with classic physique, I think it's a great opportunity where you could see someone, a dark horse, you know what I mean, that might not be on the radar in the top 10 rankings that we're talking about. Guys with these shows are turning pro very rapidly now, and you could see a guy that could rise very quick. And I'm going to keep my eyes out throughout the season and keep you guys posted who we like and some guys that we want you to watch for, you know what I mean, and that could be on the come up.
And this is global now. So you got a guy in Paraguay somewhere that nobody ever heard of that all of a sudden
that's the beauty.
Is making noise. Absolutely. Absolutely. Nate, let's get this thing started, man. Number one on both of our lists is obviously the champ, Breon Ansley. He won the second Olympia. He turned around and won the Arnold. He went and won the Olympia again. Breon is the standard for classic physique.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for him, what really stands out to me is the first time I saw him was actually in person at New York Pro, and his presence screams classic. If you see him in person and his posing, it's pretty much flawless. And the way he presents himself, he just has that poise and that swagger where maybe some people might not think that classic is that, but I see some of these guys got that classic swagger, right? Where they step on, you say, wow, that's what classic should be. Whether we have a definition for it or not, when you see someone, you say classic, right?
Yeah.
That's Breon.
I like the fact that there is an artistic side to it. I think that's really what you're describing. Isn't his nickname the Black Swan?
Yeah. Well, the way he moves, right?
There you have it. It's poetry in motion, and I think we're lucky to be seeing this and watching him set the standard. We move on to the second guy. Again, both of us on the list. You want to talk about an apple and an orange.
Right.
Chris Bumstead, young guy, amazing frame, Tiny little waist. He V-tapers out. He's got legs. He is the opposite of Breon.
I mean, both just immaculate. And it's sort of like you said, apples and oranges. Who do you like? I mean, the reason why I like Breon a little better, he's complete 100%. You know what I mean? Bumstead, you could say, oh, he could bring up his back a little bit. His arms are a little weak. You know what I mean? You could sort of pick some pieces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously, still a great physique. And both those guys, you know, is you touch base on this on your men's physique show, King's Corner, King's Crown.
King's Court with George Brown.
The top guys are consistent. You know what I mean? These guys show up and you never say, wow, that guy's off or whatever. You know, maybe a touch here and touch there, but for the most guys, these guys at the top are always showing up at their best. You know what I mean? And Bumstead is his condition is always immaculate. He's got beautiful lines, striations, you know what I mean? The whole nine.
Imagine him a little more complete. He's young. He's got years to continue to grow and be polished. I think everybody assumes we're looking at the eventual Mr. Olympia and Classic Physique and Chris Bumstead. Yet to be seen, but knocking on a door, knocking on a door, knocking on a door.
That's for sure.
Yeah, right. Now we start to split hairs here. You got you've got Henry 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Henry last year snuck up, got fourth. It's sort of one of those things where he's earning his stripes. You know what I mean? Sure, he was known in the open, but now it's like, I think the eyes are on him now, like this year coming in, whereas last year was sort of by surprise, like, oh man, this guy is really good. Like at the Olympia, I was pretty damn impressed. So I think for me, I think he could sneak by George just a hair because he sort of has that. I know a lot of people will say, oh, it's just, it's, you know, classic is this and classic is that, but everyone has their own little definition, I guess you'd say. But Henry really has that sort of like tiny waist, huge sweeping lats. He's pretty broad, you know, wide. Structurally, his condition is very good. So I could see him edging out George to be controversial.
Nate Spear and controversy. You don't hear that too often in the same sentence. No argument. I think Henry's phenomenal. I have George third. I've seen George improve. He's better than he was last year, and we didn't know that was possible. Whereas I don't know if Henry can get better until I see it. Henry had to come down from the open, so he should be close to maxed out. But because of his length, he needs to get thicker in some areas. He actually needs to put more dense muscle on. Now, can he do that and still stay within the weight confines? That's what needs to be seen.
Right.
And my money is going to be on George Peterson, what he's been able to do, as opposed to, hey, the guy already had to strip down a lot of muscle to fit into that frame. I'm thinking we've seen about the best of Henry. I have no problem being proven wrong. You know, again, I think Henry's got a fantastic physique. He's a good guy. But I need to see it before I can put him ahead of George. So I've got George 3, you've got Henry 3, and we flip-flop 3 and 4.
You made a valid point, though. I think George and Justin together make a great team, and they finally figured out the formula. When George was first coming on the scene, it was like, oh, George was a little off. George was, you know what I mean? And now they've really found that formula where they're getting better, and no one's really worrying about, oh, will George be able to fill out, make the weight, etc. Right. You know what I mean? Now it's like, we expect George is gonna be on, you know?
Right. Well, I think we all assume George is always going to be just about the most conditioned guy on a classic stage, which is something scary to think about.
The thing is, he has that thick, dense muscle where he can get peeled and he'll still be full because his muscle is so matured and dense, you know what I mean? It's hard earned, you know, it's been there.
Right. Now we go to 5th. Here we are again, same Steve Loris, who just pushed George at the Arnold. It was a 1-point decision.
Close.
It was really close. Now, Nate, we were both there. It was close. I didn't see it as a 1 point. I had George hands down. And I think you see it when you look at some poses. Steve's structure is superior to George's, but George is so much thicker, so much denser in certain areas. I didn't think it was as close as the scorecard said it was. So now we're going back to the conversation of, yes, it's bodybuilding, but there's something to be said about the flow and the symmetry of a physique in classic.
I think that's going to be the endless debate with this division. I don't think everyone's going to have their own sort of eye of, okay, this is what I think classic is. Well, that's the beauty of it, right?
Right.
Everyone's going to have their own sort of definition. You know what I mean? Some people say it's bodybuilding with a height and weight. Some people will say, no, you have to have tiny waist, sweeping lats, this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, the judges are the ones that get the final word.
Right. Right.
I think the thing with Steve too was at the Arnold, this is the first time we saw Steve really hit his mark. You know what I mean? So sometimes when you see an athlete, they finally come out and show out, then wow, and it's impressive, right? Where we've seen George sort of dial it in. So I think George was more complete. He definitely got the win, well deserved, head to toe. You know what I mean? Mature muscle. And for guys to say that he doesn't have a tiny waist, his waist is tiny and his lats come sweeping in down to his waist. You know what I mean? I think it's just his insertions. You know what I mean? He has those low lats right to the ass, pretty much. You know?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just nuts. You know?
Yeah. Now I think Steve will be even more dangerous as he continues to put on the muscle. So that's.
Well, the scary thing is, I think he said he had 10 pounds to play with.
See, now I think we're looking at a future long running, and I guess I shouldn't say long, I think nowadays, other than open, because we saw Phil Heath, long running is anything over 3 years now, because we haven't seen it very often in almost any division.
Right.
So that is a nice long run. I think that guy is primed as much as anybody that we see in the division right now to be a Mr. Olympia and a repeat Mr. Olympia. Let's see if the job gets done. So we both have him 5th right now on our board. 6, we went different directions here.
I think I had Courage.
Yep.
Well, I think Courage too is coming into his own. He just won that show, I think, in Fargo or something.
Mm-hmm.
So he's. I
think this is 2nd year he won it.
Yeah.
2 years in a row now.
Well, the thing I noticed with Courage is he's finally starting to hit his stride as far as condition goes. Some of these newer guys that have the great shape and the sort of the hype coming into it is like they haven't really hit their full potential or their full peak. You know what I mean? They're a little off or watery. They fade as the prejudging goes on. We saw at the Arnold Classic. I mean, with Keon and even Courage, you know what I mean? They come out, look great. They start to fade, holding some water. So I think he's starting to get into his own as far as the condition goes. So it's really a matter is, okay, does he hit his full potential 100%? And I really like he's got that round muscle belly. He's sort of got the pop to him, you know what I mean? 3D.
Yeah, I no arguments there. I think everything you said is spot on. I have Terrence Ruffin 1 spot ahead of Courage, and the only reason is I think there's a little more dense, mature muscle there, and that posing again. Other than maybe he is better than Breon. I don't know. I want to see the two of them at the same show do back-to-back posing routines. That's what I want to see.
Well, just remember last year when he did Toronto and he did his posing routine, I think that thing went viral. It was nuts. Like the internet exploded. That's how good it was.
I don't remember seeing a Hollywood artist choreograph that well to a song. So I'm giving the edge to Terrence there. Nate, let's talk about that for just a second here. And this is a topic we probably can go to almost all year, and maybe we should ask each and every guest on. Do we think that at some point posing in Classic Physique should be part of the point criteria. Now, I'm not talking about jumping from fifth to second, talking about whether it was a 1 point or a half a point differential between two guys that were neck and neck, and one was a superior poser. If they had a posing criteria, now again, it's subjective again, because what does somebody consider a good routine and a bad routine? But just they do it in fitness.
Yeah.
They do it in fitness. I don't think it would be all that tough to be able to, even the eye test, to say, wow,
Yeah.
that was one hell of a routine. Shouldn't that be worth a half a point or a point somewhere?
Oh, definitely. I mean, and then you get to see who does their homework and who's the veterans. You know what I mean? The true vets. They're going to show out and give a great routine. You know what I mean? And at these shows, you already see the veterans are doing that. So to have it would be also good because some of these younger guys that might be coming up, you know, sort of teach them a lesson. All right, you got to come and do your homework, right? This is
It's
classic
entertainment after all.
right?
It is entertainment.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
let's add to that entertainment. But who knows? At the end of the day, the people in charge of our business it's a smart group over out there in Pittsburgh. Look at what they've done with our sport. We've gone worldwide. We've got multiple divisions. There's work and opportunities for tens of thousands out there. Could be around the corner. Let's see. Tyler, if you're listening, uh, we can find out by the end of the year pros and cons to maybe the posing being worth a point. We don't know. Just
Right.
something to think about. We move on to 8. So we've got Courage and Terrence, 6 and 7, flip flop by you and I. We move on to 8. We start differentiating here. Our 8 and 9 are flip flopped. I've got Keon. You've got Danny.
Honestly, I actually could have Danny even higher because he always tends to be on the money. He's a guy that is pretty consistent. He doesn't quite have the crazy qualities of some of these other guys, but he does have that round, nice pop. He has a really polished look where you say, wow, that's a beautiful physique.
Yeah.
He's definitely a guy that is well rounded. He's not really missing much. He just doesn't really have that like sort of wow factor.
Yeah.
But he's definitely amazing. You know what I mean? So
And he's already qualified, so he will not be competing until the Olympia. He qualified. He was done after Legion.
oh, yep.
Smite Show, Legion Sports Festival. We talked to him then, and he said, "Hey, that's it. You will see me at the Olympia." That's
He's ready.
dangerous when you
Yeah.
give a guy almost an entire year to get ready.
Well, especially when he's that strategic about qualifying, that means you know he's hungry, right?
He did his homework.
Oh yeah.
That was a game plan. He
Right.
planned that out early in the year. He knew exactly what he was doing, so he's going to be dangerous. I've got Keon slightly edging him. I think we're looking at a guy who is going to be a future perennial top 5 once you see a little more mature muscle.
Right.
You know, he needs to get harder. And it's just the lack of maturity of the muscle. He's got a great camp. You know, he's got Flex Wheeler in his corner. Keon wants it. He wants it bad. He does his homework. He's traveling. He's trying to be a part of the sport. So he's not going to get caught sleeping. You know, we just saw him in South Carolina this past weekend. He's not going to get caught sleeping or not putting in the work. There's just such a pop to that guy.
Oh yeah.
Um,
He's just one of those guys. He's the future. It's just a matter of time when he sort of puts it together, you know.
Right.
And I mean, for him to put it together, he's already like one of the top guys in the world. You know what I'm saying? He's one of the guys that could be knocking at the top spot.
Right. And then 10th, we got a guy who's been around a long time, and that I think some people would say, wow, you guys both have him 10th. That's Arash. There's a lot of these young guys that are up and coming. You know, how much better can Arash be?
Well, this could be another discussion down the road, but I think he's sort of getting to that point where I saw him this weekend in New York, and he's pretty damn big, and I'm not a small guy, you know what I mean? So I was like, damn, that's a big dude. And he must have been, I would say, 265, maybe even 270, you know what I mean? So you got to think, this guy, I think he's getting to that point where it's very hard for him to make weight, and sort of, so like last year, it looked like he's, sucked down, but couldn't quite come back to life. You know what I mean? So that could be
Flat.
an issue.
Flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but without this is where we see now he's a workhorse. He's a veteran, savvy veteran. But when you're talking about the genetics of some of these other guys, the lack of back and the lack of quad sweep, if it's genetically not there and you're topped out with your weight, there's just not, you can make a few small changes, but how do you bump 3, 4, 5, 6 guys who genetically have those superior body parts?
Right.
It's going to be tough to see. If somebody can do it, it's going to be him.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't see it happening, especially north of 40.
Yeah.
North of 40.
Right.
Far and few between. Well, Nate, we've got one heck of a guest here. We've got to pay some bills and cut to a commercial break. But when we come back, guys, get ready for this special guest. He's a good time. Nate was sure to get a hold of him this weekend in New York and say, you got to be the first guy on. So we'll be back after this commercial break with your special guest. Everybody, we're back, and as we promised you, one hell of a guest, our first guest on the first ever Classic Physique Top 10 rankings. George, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank Nate. Nate said, I said, well, hey, man, this is the first ever episode and the first ever guest. Who do we bring on? And Nate said, absolutely, George. It's got to be George. There's no doubt.
Of course, I run into him over the weekend.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, what's up, bro? Hey.
Yeah.
Yo, well, thanks for recommending me, Nate. I appreciate it, man.
Of course.
Was that a little East Coast bias, maybe?
Always.
We stick together. We stick together always.
Yeah, there you go.
Love everyone, though.
Yeah. So, George, we were touching on a couple things earlier. We were breaking down a top 10 list, and Nate and I were pretty much neck and neck on most things. We had a couple guys flip flop, but never more than one placing. Ironically enough, one of the conversations was about guys who still have the ability to make a change in their physique, like some of the younger guys, that are still growing. And then some of you veterans at the top, you, Breon, Bumstead, Henry. And one of the things I noticed was most of us thought you were about topped out last year. You've been around. You're not a spring chicken. Your physique was already complete. You were third in the world. It doesn't get much better than that. Well, it obviously gets a whole lot better.
Right.
How were you able to come back from the Olympia to the Arnold substantially bigger, thicker? And again, Nate, correct me if I'm wrong. I think now you kind of set the standard for conditioning when it comes to the Classic Physique division now. We all know you're going to be peeled to the bone. Everybody knows it. You've kind of set a whole new bar. But you've added size. How?
I mean, see, that's the thing. And me and Justin knew that this was going to happen once we figured out the right way to bring me on stage, because the version of me that everybody's seen at the 2017 Olympia, 2018 Olympia, very good, very conditioned, but flat, you know. So nobody's seen me on stage, you know, close to my best yet. I mean, and in this Arnold, I'd say we've gotten the closest to you know, bringing my best on stage. That's why I appeared to be so much bigger, you know, fuller, still conditioned, popping. Once we found that formula, it made all the difference, you know. And you know what? I'm still gonna say that even though I did look my best on the Arnold stage, it still wasn't my absolute best yet. You know, we're still striving for that.
Is that a promise for the Olympia?
Oh, that's a promise.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so it's all about that illusion. You see, when there's a difference when you come on stage, you know, and I have the type of body type that I still look good flat, you know, and that, which is probably the reason why, even though I was flat, I was still able to hold down the top 3 spot in the world, you know, for 2 years in a row, because I still do look good flat. But it makes a huge difference when I have that fullness with it.
Day and night.
Yeah. I was on Mandus is like a lot of these younger guys, you have that developed muscle. So even if you're flat, you still, to most eyes that don't know you, you're still going to appear very good. You know what I mean? Because your muscle is so dense and hard and mature. Some of these younger guys, like, not to bring them up, but I'm saying Keon will come out, he'll fade very quick because his muscle isn't quite as mature. You know what I mean? Start to get soft.
There's a softness there. There's still a softness there.
That's
right.
true.
He can look flat and he still looks very good. You know what I'm saying? Where some of these guys, it's going to make a hell of a difference in their physique.
Right. Very true.
So George, what was the strategy then? You know, you've already said you were top 3 the last 2 years at the Olympia. You don't need to compete. Top 5 at the Olympia, requalify. Was part of this because you guys knew you still weren't, like you said, at your best? You're still looking for that winning combination of conditioning with the fullness, or was it that you just wanted to compete?
It was we had a mindset when we decided to do the Arnold, and that was to, you know, needless to say, just put our names in the history books, make history. You know what I mean? Like, how many guys can, you know, say that they won an Arnold Classic title? You know, I mean, and we wanted to be those guys who could say we went into the Arnold and we won. And I can say that now. So that was the reason. That was really the reason we decided to go and, you know, do the Arnold. I still felt fresh. I didn't feel burnt out. I mean, I only did the Olympia for 2018, just one show. So I still felt fresh. Justin asked me. Justin's prime concern was taking time off the off season. Would that affect, you know, the gains that I could make for the 2019 Olympia? And I expressed to Justin that I personally didn't, in my heart, I didn't feel like it would. I felt like I could still go, and we decided to go for the Arnold, and it looks like it was a good idea. We did it, you know.
George, you know, I ran into you and Justin multiple times after, and I do believe there was one time I said to you, I said, no one will, you'll remember this for forever. Like you said, it's history. You guys will ever be connected to that. You know, you're an Arnold Classic champion. Congratulations, champ.
Oh, thank you, man.
Once a champion, always a champ. I wholeheartedly know that feeling from Justin's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, because, you know, it's like one of those things that nobody could ever take away from you.
Right.
You can, you know, once my time is, you know, said and done, it's things you could always look back to and tell, you know, your kids, your grandkids, oh, I did this, you know, be proud of it. And you know, so that was, you know, that was pretty much the reason we decided to go for the Arnold. And also it was a good business decision, because you know how with social media is these days. The more out there you are, the better for you. So it helped us in that regard too, you know.
Well, does this actually, I would think this might favor you going to the Olympia, because a lot of the guys are sort of stuck in those spots, I feel like, the last 2 years. So now I think this would give you some momentum going to the Olympia.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Judge eyes, you know.
100% for sure. And another thing mindset we had for this Arnold, like even though we knew that like Breon, Bumstead, their names weren't on the list of doing it, we still wanted to treat this show as if they were going to be there. We wanted to be prepared, you know what I mean? So it was like a lot of people was you know, telling me, oh man, you got to win this. You're the you know, you're the highest ranked guy there in the lineup, so you got to win this. But I didn't want that to go into my mind. I wanted to stay hungry. You know what I mean?
Not only that, just improving. I feel like the judges see that you improved from Olympia, you improved from the Arnold. So now it's sort of like you're on the radar. They're not just like, oh, it's the same George. You know what I mean? So this makes you more of a contender for going for the Olympia title.
Exactly.
Sure. You know, I think another thing what you just said, what I'm hearing, it resonates. You're a pro's pro.
Oh,
You know,
thank you.
You want to be one of the best or the best professional at your craft. And that's what it truly is to be a professional.
I mean, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, especially in this division. I mean, classic physique. I mean, as we all see, it's evolving and changing. Every year. I mean, we're getting new talent all the time. So it's not something that you can become complacent in and get lazy. If you want to stay on your game and stay at the top, you have to keep pushing. Or you'll just get left behind. So.
So what's the plan moving forward?
Oh, that's the Olympia, baby. 2019 Mr. Olympia. That's the goal. That's what we're going for. So we're gonna, like I said, the goal is to come in even better than we did for the Arnold, because a lot of people may expect to see, the Arnold Classic George going to show up to the Olympia. No, 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 that's not going to happen. You're going to see an even better. You're going to see an Olympia George that would destroy the Arnold Classic George.
Wow, champion mindset. You got the champion mindset.
Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I gotta bring up those. So the other day you made a post, and I thought it was pretty comical because you got a lot of people going. The other day was April Fool's, was it not?
Yeah.
So what did you make a post about, and how many people did you get going?
Oh, I got everybody, man. I got everybody. People saying, everybody kept coming up to me saying, I read the first part, and then I was about to curse you out, and then I read the rest, and I was like, oh, no, he's okay, he's just joking, Because so, I feel like that would be a perfect April Fool's joke because everybody. Yeah, everybody.
Especially after people saying, like, you got the people saying, "Oh, you should do 212 and this and that." You know what I mean? So,
right.
And then you say that and get everyone going. I thought that was great.
For those of you out there who don't know, George, can you share what the post was? We're gonna put it up. Zach, the producer, is gonna get that put up here so you guys can see. George, send us the post when we're done here. Send it to Nate so we can get it put up. But tell us what the post was so everybody out there can be filled in.
All right, so it was a post of me, hitting like one of my most muscular type shots, and in the caption I put, after doing a lot of soul searching and talking with a bunch of people who I know and love, I've decided to switch over to 212, and then I did ... and then I said April Fools, come on, baby, classic physique all day, you know what it is, like. So and then to top it off, what Justin did. Justin put up like a bait and switch. He put up a post saying, "I've decided. Me and George have decided to go to 212. Check his page, for his official announcement, so that will get more people to come over and then get fooled.
Oh man, you got some. Yeah, I saw some back and forth.
People don't read. They don't read.
Exactly.
Reading is fundamental. Well, it's not that far-fetched, even though most people say a guy who's in the top 3, you should never switch. But we have seen it. Sadiq did it years ago in men's physique. But you're seeing a lot of guys now transitioning from division to division. There's been several classic physique guys who have gone over to the 212 within the last 12 months. Is this a pattern you foresee happening more and more now? Or do you think it's just something that happened with these few? This was just a simple case-by-case situation.
Right. I mean, I think you're gonna see it more and more, like, because at the end of the day, guys are trying to find where they truly belong, and there's some guys out there who, are still up in the air about it, so that's why they'll go from 212 to classic. It's test the waters there, and then guys who may not be doing that well in classic, then maybe go to 212 or open, because see where they place there. So it's just about testing the water. So I definitely see it, especially as the division evolves, more and more. Like, people are just gonna just test the water and see where they belong, see where they fit best. But I mean, as far as like the top guys in the division, I don't see, if you're a top guy in the division, I don't see any reason to switch yet. Right. You know what I mean? So,
what do you think about 212 not being at the Arnold this year?
Yeah, I mean that's unfortunate, for the 212 competitors who may have wanted to compete at the Arnold. I mean, and that's another thing that's kind of like when people bring up 212 to me, I'm like, well, I mean, as a competitive standpoint, when the time came, I have no problem doing a 212. But if it's going to be like that, where 212 is not even at the Arnold,
yeah.
I mean, is that a sign of something that's going on with the 212 division? I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's definitely unfortunate. I've talked with a few my friends who do 212, and they were, a little upset that the 212 wasn't at the Arnold. So it's unfortunate.
Nate, could we see a possible? I don't know if resurgence or regeneration is even the word, because I don't think many people thought it was a dying division, but could there be all of a sudden a resurgence or rejuvenation of the 212 if we see more and more classic guys who didn't find their home in classic moving to the 212? Because there has to be a home for these athletes. And if more and more guys are going to make the move and it becomes that much more and more competitive and sustainable, does that bring new life to it?
Well, the problem is some of these, not necessarily George, where he's very developed and he could probably do well in the 212. Very few can say that, because if you can make the classic weight, you're probably not going to do very well in the 212, to be honest with you. Right. We just saw that this weekend, and no offense to these guys, they keep putting in the work, and they'll be definitely runners in some of the 212. But you got Jason Lowe and then Kevin Johnson we talked about. They made the switch, did the 212, didn't place very well. I mean, these guys that are placing in the 212 are 5'4" and 210, to put in the summary. So they're pretty diesel guys, you know what I mean? So, and same thing with Steve last year. He did the New York Pro, and I think he didn't even make top 10. Glorious, you know what I mean? So it's something that we'll have to develop. But the thing is, the 212, I don't see many names drawing the seats, where guys want to go see George. They want to see C-Bum. They want to see Breon. Now you see a lot of the older veterans. Jose is gone. Flex is gone. That rivalry is gone. You got Dixon's almost done. You got David Henry's almost done. All these names that are the stars of the 212 are sort of gone. You got Derek Lunsford, and then really who else and how long is Derek going to be in the 212? You know what I mean? So it's sort of like those names and the sort of pulling in the fans. I don't really see too much going on, I guess, which is a scary thing.
So it will take time for guys to develop from classic into 212. We might see the rejuvenation. We might see an evolution, because in a year or two, it would be just like a guy who turned pro as a middleweight or a light heavyweight. It's going to take him 2 or 3 years to do well on those stages anyways. Same thing with guys coming from class. It'll be interesting to see. It'll really be interesting to see. George, before we let you go, I'm sure Singerman, you're with Redcon now. You've got a good company behind you. We know Singerman likes to have you guys work. You going to be doing some international traveling, anything like that, or are you going to kind of keep it home here and get focused for the Olympia?
I'm gonna, for the most part, I'm just gonna keep it at home, because I expressed to Aaron, how important it is for me to make sure that my training and things don't get interfered with too much, and he respected that. So and the whole Redcon team has been respectful of that. So they haven't asked me to do anything that's going to throw off my schedule too bad or at all. I mean, what they actually want to do is, and which is fine, they want to bring me out to Florida, which is the home base, and do some stuff out there, and I'm definitely going to be doing that.
Aaron's been around for a long time. He knows the game.
Yeah, exactly.
He's been around a long time. You got a good camp around you. Justin Miller is a good friend of the show, a great supporter, a great guy, great coach. You guys make a fantastic team. George, we wish you nothing but the best of luck. We appreciate you being the first ever guest, and we'll be seeing a lot more of you, buddy.
For sure, brother. Thank you, man. That's appreciated, man. And Nate, love you, dog.
Of course. Thanks, George. As always, appreciate it.
All right. Rooting for it. Guys, until next time, the very first episode, your Classic Physique Top 10 Ranking Show. Mandus Buckle, Nate Spear, our very first guest, George the Bull. Thanks, George. Until next time, guys, we're out.